This morning, we saw him walking past, and this was his fault. We saw him walking past Northern Cape Premier, ANC Provincial Committee Chairperson, Dr. Zamani. Saul has walked in, and Doctor, Chairperson, Premier, that's a lot of titles. Morning. So yesterday went well. Did you get some sleep?
Yes, we did get some sleep because we had an early break just after the political report by the president, and we broke. And so it was around 7. So all of us, we are well rested and ready for today.
So what does it mean then for the program? Also because you had a conference program that's meant to end on Tuesday and now interrupted by, of course, those delays. What does it mean then moving forward?
What it means moving forward is that we just have to accelerate on how we implement other aspects of the program. What is expected today is the organizational report, the finance report, and immediately as we reconvene now, we'll deal with the credentials. We hope that those aspects of the agenda won't hold us too long so that we can really get into the business of conference.
But you're not worried about the quality of then those engagements if you have to accelerate due to time?
The conference does not start today. It started almost at the beginning of the year with a whole lot of engagements around policy documents, and I'm certainly quite aware we had a national policy conference which teased out the details of our policy positions. So it does not start today. There's a whole lot of work that took place. Branch general meetings, about 4,000 branch general meetings convened right throughout the country, not only to nominate leadership but also to engage on policy matters. So that's where we are. Lots of work has been done. I would actually say about 80% of the work has been done. We are just here to conclude about 20% thereof.
And there's a lot of work to still get through. There's the nomination process, then there's the voting process as well. I want to talk about an article that you are quoted in, Premier, from OFM just a few days ago. Saul defending the call to discipline members who defied party lines. It's cast a shadow, hasn't it, over this conference, because that's what everyone's writing about. It was what we saw in the National Assembly, the potential adoption of that Section 89 report, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and yet here we are again, should be talking about conference, but we have to talk about this. I mean, how much of a problem is this,
But I think to a large extent we've put that behind us, and we are basically focusing on the business of conference. Check what happened with the last parliamentary sitting. It was an offense on the integrity of the organization. We're an organization. What that means is that we've got organized practices, we've got organized values, organized policies, and also organized rules. And when there's an attack on those organized practices, that's an attack on the integrity of the organization. Without those organized rules, practices, and values, we are not an organization. We are just a group of individuals. So that's what that distinguishes us from being a group of individuals and an organization. So that attack was completely uncalled for, and we condemn it in strongest possible terms. And we hope that is something that will never happen again.
Just to further continue part of what you're quoted on here, on a daily basis, opposition parties expel their public representatives that defy the party line.
That's what is happening. I'm certain all of you experience that. The EFF would even expel about 11. What happened in the province? We had a problem in Soplaki municipality where about 11 councillors defied the ANC. We brought that report to the National Executive Committee. And the National Executive Committee said this is intolerable. They must be expelled. And whilst we tried to beg with them that if we expel them, we'll have to go to 9 by-elections, that even threatened, put at risk the majority of the ANC in Soplaki, which is the biggest municipality in our province. They said we are prepared to lose the municipality than to allow ill discipline to ferment.
So how does that play out with what we saw?
So it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. We have to nip this kind of behavior right in the bud. If you don't do that, that's the end of the organization.
What does that nipping of the bud look like? What is
we have to activate our disciplinary processes. There's no other way. We'll just have to invoke disciplinary processes against them so that we get this behavior not to take place. Even at the eNCA, there's a set of rules all of you must abide with. If you don't, there's consequences for
that. I just want to also talk about that comment you made just now, Premier, regarding organizing as an organization. And true to form, we've seen it with other political parties as well. But with regards to what happened in Parliament, what would your response be to critics, particularly the opposition, saying that you're more focused on, protecting individuals and the organization than the interests of South Africans, it seems?
It's not protecting individuals. There were sufficient discussions within the organization. We looked at the report. I don't know whether you guys had an opportunity to read the report. It's a nonsense of a report. It's a very clumsy report. It's not worth the kind of attention we invest into it. It's a color blocking. You read the report, when you come to the conclusion negates the content of the report. So we had such discussions and we all agreed but this report is not assisting us. Because in terms of the rules of parliament, sufficient evidence must be established. And they speak of prima facie evidence, and they don't even go to engaging what sufficient evidence means for impeachment process. So it's just a nonsense of a report which we discussed, and we all agreed. And the NEC took a decision that it's not worth it. Why should we approve such a report as the African National Congress? So the mandate was communicated to our parliamentarians. We had a proportional representative system, a party-based system in this country. Nobody represents a constituency who can go to parliament and say, my constituency says. That seat belongs to the African National Congress. So they have to push the party line. That's the minimum expectation from each and every member of parliament.
Let's talk about what we've now seen with the former president, Jacob Zuma, the current president of the ANC, Saul Ramaphosa, this private prosecution. We know this has been spoken about. What's the sense from inside the walls of Nasrec?
No, that private prosecution is just ludicrous. That's ludicrous. And everybody, even a first-year student, knows that to pursue private prosecution, you need a nolle prosecutor certificate. That's what you need, the knowledge certificate for you to pursue private prosecution. There's no such certificate where NPA says we are not going to prosecute the president, because the president was not charged by anybody. So now when you come back with this thing, and I think it's just to muddy the waters. And the reason why they are doing this is simply because the re-election of Comrade Cyril is unstoppable here.
When you say they, who's they?
Nobody can stop the re-election of Comrade Cyril here. So what they are actually doing is grasping at straws, trying to come up with all sorts of things. His re-election is unstoppable. He will be re-elected as we live here. He will be serving his second term as the president of the ANC.
Let me ask you again, who's they? You use they a few times.
But isn't it that, is it Jacob Zuma, what do you call it, his trust?
Foundation.
Yeah, foundation. That is coming up with this thing. That's ludicrous.
Why would a former president do it?
Whoever advised him on this, if it's a lawyer, that is an imbecile of a lawyer. Because this can't stand in any court of law, and it's not even going to stand in this conference.
Some suspended, or rather a suspended member, Isma Khashid, I'm sure you saw the visuals as well yesterday, saying that he should step aside. He respected the party and stepped aside. Kalni House, Lindiwe Sisulu were also there on stage. I mean, and as far as at least Lindiwe Sisulu is concerned, still a very much member of the ANC. Those comments and those actions, what do they mean then for you as an organization?
To check the reality of the matter, as we come to this conference, there's a contestation for leadership. And the reality of the matter is that Cyril Ramaphosa is a formidable force here. So those who are contesting around him, they know they don't have the required numbers to remove him as the president. So they will resort in all sorts of tendencies to try to have him not to contest. When the issue of the report came out, senior leaders who are contesting to become presidents of the ANC called for him to resign. Where is that requirement in terms of the ANC policy processes, the framework that we've developed around step aside? Around step aside, we say when you are charged, criminally charged, you must step aside for corruption or any other serious offense. So now this report comes, which triggers a process in Parliament. They say step aside. It's senior leaders. And That's just ideological bankruptcy. It's shocking because they are the ones who are supposed to know better what the ANC policies are saying. That report is not a criminal charge against them. Now that failed. That thing went to the NEC, they failed. All of a sudden now, from Jacob Zuma Foundation, there's some kind of a charge against the president. I think every South African and every delegate in that hall can see through this. And it's not going to work, it's not going to succeed. As we live here, Cyril will be starting doing his second term as the
Also,
president.
if I may, Premier, you spoke about every South African witnessing what's been going on. I mean, are you not worried at all about the image and the reputation of the ANC going to 2024 if its leaders, as you're mentioning, actually know about these rules, yet they decide to take a particular stand? These are senior leaders of the ANC, a clear indication of factions there. What does it say about you leading then to 2024?
But the reality of the matter is that political consciousness is not permanent. It does not permanently reside in an individual. Political consciousness is like a visitor. It comes and it goes. And when it goes, it does not say goodbye. So that's the problem that we are sitting with. We are sitting with this serious degeneration within the ranks of the movement, which you can't solely attribute to the behavior of branches, but it's also there in terms of senior leaders. You saw what happened yesterday, the attempt to disrupt the president. Which self-respecting organization can tolerate that? But I'm happy that happened, because basically it did an irreparable damage to the campaign to try and remove the president. I met one delegate here from Gauteng, who said, I was considering to vote Zweli, but I can't be part and parcel of this nonsense. That's what the delegates say. I can't be part and parcel of this ill discipline. I'm going to vote Cyril because he demonstrated leadership whilst he was under attack. So how we behave shape attitudes and perception of people about us, and particularly how our senior leaders that we are looking up to behave. This generation of leaders, which include me, we always say we stand on the shoulders of giants. And those giants must behave with restraint. They can't just think they own the ANC belongs to them, the ANC is a family PTY. The ANC is not that. This is an organization of the South African people, and that's how we should handle it, with utmost respect. And if they don't do that, then there's a problem.
Internal disciplinary processes, you say, should be followed, are going to be followed as well. Do you get a sense that the South African public, the ANC voting public, really see what that discipline looks like? Because there's a lot of talk, isn't there? It's internal processes, we're deliberating, etc. But what action would you like to see against, I mean, the 4 ANC members from the National Assembly, the disruptors from last night? Put your head on the block. What should happen to them? If South Africa's watching now, what do you want to have happen?
Check, the ANC internal processes are very complex. And you are quite correct. In most instances, you pick up that those who are not inside it, they don't understand how we do things inside the movement. So you've got parliamentarians who decided to defy party line in a brazen way. They decide to defy party line.
Very public.
So, yes, very public. And what needs to happen is that we need to invoke our disciplinary process. I think that's the decision which was taken by the last National Executive Committee. I was in that National Executive Committee, and that National Executive Committee, in strongest possible terms, condemns their behavior. So there will be processes that will unfold with regard to that. But with regard to what happened in plenary, the incoming leadership have to reflect to that. When we stage such large event, National Conference of the ANC is the biggest event, political gathering in the country, where you've got more than 4,000 branches participating. How many countries have been invited here? I think there's more than 20 people who are representing other countries. So we put ourselves on a pedestal, global stage, and say, here we are at the African National Congress, and through a behavior of some few individuals, there's a major disruption that distracts attention from the main issues that we have to deal with. The incoming NEC must deal with this, because there is absolutely no self-respecting organization that can tolerate that kind of behavior. None.
Also, just on top of that, I think I'd like to add that besides the image that's being painted right now, as far as the senior leadership is concerned, Premier, the President yesterday during his political report also admitted to some failures by the organization. I'm asking this because we are here because you're leading to 2024 to make a quite significance in terms of, elections and also those votes. He admitted to those failures, including the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw what happened with the corruption around PPE there, the 2021 July unrest just last year, as well as those catastrophic floods out in KZN and the handling of all those tragic events. Will that impact, in your view, not only 2024, but how then do you plan to come out of it as a party?
South Africans don't expect that there should be no failures by the ANC. That's not their expectations through the engagements that I had with them. They don't expect that there should be no failures from any other political party. What they expect is where there are lapses, leadership of those organizations should respond to them. The question that we should be asking ourselves is that, do we see courage, commitment to respond and try and address those lapses and failures? In the leadership of Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, one of the issues which he raised very strongly in his political report is the issue of corruption. Yes, it relates to the issue of COVID and to the issue of state capture. I'm certain every South African who listened to him, there is absolutely no uncertainty, no doubt on the commitment of the ANC and this government to ensure that we are going to follow up on those. On the commission, there is, under the pressure which he was, there is no doubt that there will be follow-up on monies that were lost during COVID. So that's what South Africans don't say there should be no corruption. There will be corruption. Corruption is a global phenomenon. But when there is corruption, what is leadership doing about it? You've got a president who's dedicated time and resources to strengthen the law enforcement agencies of this country. NPA has got much more money, the Hawks have got much more money, they are recruiting, they are strengthening their capacity because these institutions were hollowed. And it's practical there. Hawks, day in, day out, they are arresting people on issues of corruption. Nobody can dispute that. It's happening right in our faces. So we want this program, which is part and parcel for a broader program of renewal, to continue. That is the reason why we are here. We are resolute that this man must come back to finish his work. We want to give him another 5 years so that we can be able to address all these ills within our movement and within government.
Premier, thank you. We're going to say thank you for the moment. I'm sure we're going to speak again, I'm sure, to many other ANC members as well. Northern Cape Premier, ANC Provincial Committee Chairperson, Dr. Saul, joining us this morning. Dr. Zamani, Saul.